this week was National Wills Week 2023 in South Africa, a week dedicated to highlighting the importance of having a will in place and the implications of not having one. Shockingly, a 2022 report from the Master of the High Court in South Africa shows that less than 15% of South Africans have a will when they die. As you can imagine, this is always a cause for huge family fights and uncertainty. Sphume Dlungwane is a chartered accountant who has taken it upon herself to educate South Africans on the law and the letter of financial existence. She's on social media under the alias Your Financial Friend. Sphume, good morning and thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
No, it's a pleasure. Just looking at the stats, it seems as though many households are not having the conversation around wills. What exactly are some of the reasons being furnished? Because from what we're looking at, it's as though people don't want to confront the idea of their mortality. They feel talking about wills means you're just bringing death to your family.
Yes, I think that's predominantly the reason. It feels uncomfortable to talk about death. It feels that once you've spoken about it, perhaps you are bringing it into your life and you're bringing it quite quickly than it would perhaps have come. And so I think that's why we are not able to have these conversations comfortably and normally. But I think one thing that we need to accept and be comfortable with is that death is inevitable. At some point, we are all going to pass away. And so it's important for us to be able to have these wills in place for us to be able to ensure that when we do leave the earth, when we do pass away, our assets, our children are actually administered and looked after in a way in which we would like them to be looked after. So that's why it's important for us to be able to have wills in place.
Then the all-important question, who can draft a will, from the age even to the kind of assets that one can bequeath? Because many assume that it must be people with a lot of assets to distribute who would then draft a will, where people just say, no, I don't have much, so I wouldn't put together a will.
Yeah, I know that's also another misconception, because essentially a will is an extension of your wishes, what you would like to be extended once you are no longer on earth and once you are no longer able to speak for yourself. So essentially, if you have any assets, and assets don't have to be major assets. You can have assets, we can talk about a car, a home, we can even talk about furniture or any valuable assets that you deem valuable for yourself. It may be even your clothing, or sneakers, anything that you deem valuable and you'd like to pass over and have someone look after it or wear it if it's items of clothing that you deem valuable. It's also we are living in a digital world now, a digital legacy. We have social media. How would you like your social media to be administered after you have passed away? Do you want your social media to continue? Do you want to leave your login details on your will so that your social media can actually be deactivated and can no longer be in place? Also, if you have children, minor children, how do you want your children to be looked after? Who will look after your minor children? So it really doesn't mean that you have to have major assets. It's really also sometimes the practical day-to-day events that will help your family be able to manage the situation once you have passed.
Then to the validity aspect, what qualifies as a valid will?
Yeah, so very important. What qualifies as a valid will is that the will must be in writing, must be documented. It must also be signed by the person who is actually who is drafting the will. So you must sign and actually also initial each page of the will, just to make sure that nothing is altered in any way. The will must also be witnessed. It must be witnessed, but it's important to note that those who witness the will mustn't be the beneficiaries of the will or the executor of the will. So it must be external parties who have no bearing on the will. And also you must be in a sound mind. You mustn't be under duress. You mustn't seem to be forced when you are actually drafting your will. And also the witnesses who sign the will must be present in the room, and they must also understand what they're signing in terms of the will. The will must be dated, important that it's dated so that we know when it's effective. And also it's important to be able to appoint an executor to the will, someone who is a valued stakeholder to the will, who will ensure that all your wishes are granted once the will comes into place after the inevitable event of death.
Does this need to go to the master or not? Or it can be something that is kept at home. You've had the two witnesses that have signed it. How does it work in that respect?
So it is recommended that you do draft a will with a professional, a professional who is experienced, because what they will do is then they will keep the original copy of the will, and then you may keep the copy of the will, so that it's just also kept in a safe place, safe environment, and it's not lost in any way. And also it assists if it's kept by a professional. If you require any updates to the will, amendments to the will, you know that the professional is able to actually then amend the will accordingly. But also, in order for the will to be valid, valid, in order for it to not be contested in court, rather do approach a professional who will ensure that the will is valid and is prepared in accordance with the Wills Act.
And then just for those who are still on the fence, uncertain if they should actually draft a will, just take us through some of the challenges that your loved ones could be faced with if you die intestate, where you do not have a will.
So the complication comes in when you do die intestate is that the executor, the person who's then going to administer all your assets and ensure that they distributed, is then the state, it's then government. And so what happens is that process can be one, lengthy, two, very complicated, because what happens is that they'll have to research and find out what's your family tree structure, because the assets will be distributed in accordance to your next of kin. And so sometimes you may find that there's certain people who come out of the woodwork and suddenly are your next of kin. And so that research process could take very long, lengthy, and it could take years for the process to actually be finalized. And so that's where the challenges may come in. So it's usually quite easy just to be able to ensure that you just draft a will, because it will make life very easy for those who are left behind once you have departed.
I took a look at your social media platform, and it seems you give advice on a lot of financial issues. Just take us through some of the other issues that you tackle on your page for those that might want to reach out.
Yeah, so my page is mostly a financial education platform. I call my community your financial friends, because it's just essentially a platform which really seeks to normalize the money conversation, and it's also a platform which ensures that we actually increase our financial confidence, because once we become financially confident, once we become financially knowledgeable, we become financially confident, and when we become confident, we are then able to make smart financial decisions that will enable us to be able to live a life of our dreams. And so the platform is really a financial education platform. The community is able to tap into the educational content that I create, as well as the lives that we have on social media on a weekly basis.
And then just in closing, any tip on how to stretch our money in this very tight economy?
Sure. Goodness, this economy.
It's a very difficult one.
It is very, very difficult. And I think we've come to a point where we've probably cut down on as much as we could cut in terms of our expenses. And I think the next question that we need to ask is, how can we then start diversifying our income streams? How can we start leveraging on the skills that we have, and leveraging and actually increasing the income streams on the skills, the talents, the competence, the ideas that we have, in order to be able to increase our income stream. I think that's where we are at this point with our economy.
Sphume, thank you very much for your time.